Good afternoon. My name is Josh Shapiro. I'm proud to serve as Pennsylvania's Attorney General and very pleased to be here in York today for a major announcement. Let me first introduce some of the individuals who are standing behind me today. Sergeant Robert Lombardo from the Pennsylvania State Police. We appreciate you being with us. David Gorman, our Senior Deputy Attorney General, who led the effort on this case. Let me recognize and welcome York County District Attorney Tom Kearney. Let me also acknowledge, though they're not here today, some active participants in this process with us, and I'm very grateful to them, the Blair County District Attorney's Office, the Blair County Drug Task Force, the Altoona Police Department, and of course I know she's not here, but I want to thank my good friend Mayor Bracey for welcoming us here today and allowing us to use City Hall. Today we are charging 15 people with operating a major heroin pipeline from New York City to York to Altoona. The charges and operation of this pipeline are laid out in a statewide grand jury presentment made public earlier today. This began as a relatively routine investigation, but because of the good work of the grand jury, we climbed up the chain and it ultimately led to this major bust. The pipeline distributed, and it's important for you to hear these numbers because they are shocking. The pipeline distributed and sold 15,000 bricks of heroin in York and Blair County over a 2-year period of time. To put that into some perspective for you, 15,000 bricks of heroin is equivalent to 750,000 bags of heroin. 750,000 bags of heroin that made their way into York and Blair County over these last 2 years just through this network. This was a major heroin pipeline that we have broken up and shut down. And while there were 15 people charged in this pipeline, there were 2 ringleaders, Wayne Davis and Lawrence Francis, and they are both from here in York. The dealers arrested today in York and Blair County face various charges, including delivery of a controlled substance, corrupt organizations, and related charges. Let me give you a little background on this New York to Altoona heroin pipeline. Today's work obviously follows the good work of a statewide investigative grand jury presentment that recommended these charges. The grand jury worked for nearly a year on this case, and we thank them for their service to our Commonwealth. Initially, the focus was actually just on the we thought, limited heroin sales by defendants Davis and Francis in and around the Altoona area. This actually began, as many do, as a relatively minor case. But our folks worked hard and worked diligently, and the grand jurors worked hard and diligently, which ultimately allowed us to climb the chain. We learned of the broader pipeline and of the other individuals involved with buying and selling heroin and ecstasy with Davis and Francis, specifically in York and in Altoona. The investigators then learned that Davis and Francis had ties to heroin suppliers in New York City. They learned of monthly trips by Davis, Francis, and others to New York where they would buy bricks of heroin and transport it back to first York, then Altoona for sale. I want to tell you about one specific instance that I think elucidates the broader pipeline. The ringleaders coordinated with these other defendants. For example, Katrina Leonard, one of the other defendants, went to New York by bus with an empty suitcase in hand. There she would meet up with Davis and Francis. They would fill that suitcase with poison, and she would bring it back to York and Blair County and push that garbage out into our community. That's how their pipeline worked. Francis and Davis directed all of this trafficking along the New York-Altoona heroin pipeline. This was a significant case for our office, and I want to thank the Blair County Drug Task Force, the Blair County District Attorney's Office, the York County District Attorney's Office, PSP, and Altoona Police for their work in this investigation. I have said many times that when law enforcement coordinates and cooperates, we can do a far better job of keeping people safe. And all of these organizations deserve credit for their hard work in allowing us to reach this point today. My office is committed to making sure we work with law enforcement at the federal, state, and local level. And each and every one of these entities deserves credit for the outstanding work that led us here today. We have demonstrated in our office, and we've demonstrated through these partnerships, that we will take on the big cases, that we will do everything we can to rid our communities of this poison that is infecting it, that is taking too many lives across this Commonwealth. I've also made it clear that while we will take this fight to the street corners of Pennsylvania, as we're doing today, that we will also take this fight to doctors' offices where pills are being diverted and used illegally. We will take this fight to pharmaceutical companies where they are creating addicts by their overprescribing and overemphasis and overmarketing of opioid painkillers. That we will take this fight wherever it needs to go. We also recognize in this fight that there's a difference between the drug dealers that I'm speaking of today and the treatment that they deserve, which is going to be incarceration for some good long period of time, and those who are dealing and battling with addiction who need assistance and care. And we're working very hard on all of those fronts in a multidisciplinary way to ensure that we deal with what I've deemed the top challenge facing this office and Pennsylvania today, which is the heroin and opioid epidemic. Look, there is obviously much more work to be done, and we are by no means done our effort. We've got a lot left to do. But this is a major pipeline. It's been sealed off, it's been stopped, and the people of York, the people of Blair County are better off because of this coordinated effort from law enforcement today. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any of questions you have on this topic.
How long has the pipeline been in operation?
Over a 2-year period of time, and we investigated it for about a year through the grand jury. The statistics I gave you before about the 15,000 bricks and the 750,000 bags of heroin that made their way into the communities was over the time period of roughly 2015 to 2016. Anything else? Yes, sir.
You said it started as a regular investigation. Can you tell us how it got started, I guess?
Well, look, we get tips on a whole host of things. We have agents who are out embedded in communities who work undercover. We get information in a lot of different ways. I'm not going to get into the specifics standing up here right now. But what I will tell you is that our folks, both our Senior Deputy Attorney General, who's behind me, as well as our agents and investigators, we're out in the field working this case hard, as they do every case, and putting lots of different pieces together. And in doing so, and then being able to do it through the grand jury process, that enabled us to deal with a bigger pipeline.
One person listed as behind bars, the other 15 in custody. How does it stand?
We're in the process of getting all of them in custody. I think we have over 10 at this point, 10 at this point in custody. And this is literally happening by the minute. We expect to have all 15 in custody shortly.
The two ringleaders, are they in custody?
Mr. Francis is in custody on $1 million bail straight in Blair County. Mr. Davis, we are actively pursuing him with warrants here as well as in New York City.
Thank you.
Obviously, the heroin epidemic is a big deal. What does it mean to you as Attorney General to be able to shut something like this, like an operation, down?
It's very meaningful because this is a key piece of our effort to combat the heroin and opioid epidemic. But make no mistake, just as we bring this fight to the street corners, and this is a major street corner effort, if you will, we also have to be vigilant in making sure we're dealing with this, as I said before, in doctors' offices, in pharmaceutical companies, and elsewhere. We can't win this battle simply by doing one thing, which is why I've charged my team in the Office of Attorney General of looking at this in a multidisciplinary way, which is why the efforts by the legislature and the governor to get treatment available to people who are addicts, who are not dealing, is critically important. And I think when we begin to do all of those things, then we'll begin to see a real dent and real progress being made. But make no mistake, you shut down a major pipeline like this, one that infected our community with 750,000 bags of heroin, that's going to have a positive impact on York and Blair County. All right? Thank you all very much.